Guys, it's Roderick, and I'm here with a review of The Morning Show, Season 3, Episode 1, The Kármán Line. I am so excited to be back. I love this show. This is one of my favorite shows. I'm still going to keep doing my comic book reviews, but I'm glad to be back in scripted television. So, you're going to have all the episodes before the episode 3 comes out so you can catch up and we can just have our regular kiki every week with this show, okay? So let's start off. So the show starts off and it's March 10th, 2022, which is 2 years kind of like after the pandemic started, towards kind of the tail end. And there's like this obituary scene with Alex. I was like, what? Is she dead? But no, child, she's just getting ready to go in space, and they got to make sure that her obituary scene is ready in case something happens with the spaceship or whatever. We're like, okay, Alex in space. This is interesting where this is going. So now, of course, we cut to Bradley. So I was like, okay, Bradley. So she just showed her in bed. And I was like, oh, is she in bed with Corey? Is she with Laura? Child, she done got a whole nother lesbianic hookup. We're like, okay, so you're just in the streets now, like full-on lesbian, full-on bisexual, like, not that it matters, but we're like, the last time we left you, child, you were trying to be in the closet and we're panicking because people had spread a rumor that you were dating Laura, right? And Corey had just confessed your love. So I thought she would have done the pragmatic thing and had started having sex with her boss. But these chicks nowadays, right? So she's in bed with a random hookup, and she's pretty much telling the hookup like she has to go, right? So Alex, of course, has her own show, Alex Unfiltered, and she's interviewing this therapist, which is really interesting because the therapist serves as really the first this kind of unofficial narrator at the beginning of the episode, right? Talking about how after the pandemic, you know, people are looking for really real connections, and really is kind of posing the question to Alex when she asks, what makes you feel really alive? And Alex is like, work. Well, why is it work? Why are you not feeling alive with your connections with other people, right? So the kind of her interview with the therapist kind of serves as this kind of like unofficial narration, right, of what's really going on. And if you've watched any of my reviews before, what's my number one rule? Never trust the narrator, right? So I thought that was a very interesting thing. The writing on this show, I have to say, it stays like at its top level. So it was good. So now Bradley, after she got out the bed with a lesbian, is tracking down this story with this woman named Luna. She's texting back and forth. And Bradley has her own show. So she's doing the evening news. So Bradley is in her own universe, and Jennifer Aniston's kind of like in her own universe. Kind of like, we'll say, call it planets, at least. Like, there's a space theme for this episode. So they're both kind of operating in kind of like their own planets. So then we get a steam room scene with Corey, and I was like, okay, whatever. And then just steam room scene with Jon Hamm. Now, not the steam room scene that I may have been hoping with for Jon Hamm, but we'll take it because I'm a Jon Hamm fan and everything that goes with that. So anyway, they're talking, and the scene so what the writers do in this scene is a very good way of disguising exposition. So exposition is how you kind of dump information and let us know what's going on without telling us what's going on, right? Because we're like, who is this guy? Why is he with Corey? Why does it really matter? And we get all of this in this kind of wrapped up, like kind of biblical metaphor that Jon Hamm's character is Paul Marks. He is a billionaire who Corey is trying to sell UBA to, right? And we can also find out that this is also the person who is going into space, right? It's his spaceship that's going on, right? So we're like, okay, but they really did a really good job of disguising that exposition with kind of like telling the stories and using Corey's like, you know, I didn't discover Alex, but I brought her back to life. Well, you know what? That makes me Jesus. And Paul Hamm is like, well, you know what, Jesus? Your company's over leveraged. You're in financial problems, so no more fish and loaves for you, which I thought was like a very cute repertoire back and forth with the both characters. So I was like, okay, John. I mean, he could pretty much do no wrong anyway, but I was like, let's go. Let's see where this goes, right? So then we have like this great elevator scene, right? Finally we get Alex and Bradley together, and they're catching up, and you know, Alex has this new apartment, because remember, child, she was staying in a hotel, right? She was staying in that hotel down the street from Corey, but I guess she was like, I can't live here no more, because if you're trying to hunch me, and I'm trying to munch, our hunches and munches aren't really crossing. So she done moved and got her a whole new apartment or whatever. Alex sent her a rug or recommended a rug. But, you know, they're still friendly, which is good, because after 3 seasons of this kind of quasi-contentious relationship between the characters, we now see that even though they're in their own separate silos or their own planets, they're still aligned and they're still friendly and having affectionate and really like each other, which is good because I mean, no one wants to see another season of them going back and forth with each other, right? So then Alex shows up, and one of the things I really like about this show is that Jennifer Aniston really embodies just rich white woman tease, right? Like the way in which her body movements is always like, I'm that bitch, I'm the person, yes, this is me, yes, I'm here, hair, earrings, outfit. It just kind of gives me like those reminiscent days of old school Dallas and Dynasty when the girls would just walk through the hallways and show up in doorways and let people have it. Like Jennifer Aniston does a really good job of just really embodying rich white woman tease, right? So she shows up at Corey's door. She's like, knock, knock, knock. What's going on? You ain't returning my phone calls. He's like, bitch, I'm busy. I'm running the company. Like, what do you need? What do you want? She's like, well, you know what I need. You know what I want. I want a stake in this company. I want to have a say. I done brought in $2 billion of ad revenue. Now, we know Corey is already trying to sell the company, so there ain't really nothing to give out to her anyway, right? But Billy Crudup does a really good job of signaling subtext, and I call it silent subtext, where you know that he's not saying something and you know what he's not saying. Because the whole time Alex is going in and letting have, he's moving his mouth and, you know, doing these movements, and we're all like, bitch, there ain't nothing to give. He's trying to sell this shit, right? So anyway, she's like, I want a stake in the company. So then we find out that he's like, because Alex, he's late to this meeting with Sybil and Stella. Remember, Stella's president of the news division. Sybil is the chairman of the board, right? So she's like, you know, of course, another rich old white lady's like, how are you going to keep me waiting at a meeting at my company? He's like, you know, it was Alex, la, la, la. So they've been instituting all these budget cuts at UBA because pretty much Corey has poured all of his efforts into UBA Plus, which is a streaming service, which has been profitable, but the company is now over leveraged, meaning that they have a really, really high debt ratio, right? So Sybil's like, quit cutting corners, we'll weather this storm, whatever. Mind you, she doesn't even know that he's been fool-la-laing around with Paul Marks, aka John Hamm, and he's trying to sell the company, right? So then Stella's like, so they have this really great scene when the Sybil's like, well, what did Alex want? What she always wants, too much. So Stella leaves and meets with Bradley, who's picking out dresses, and she's like, oh, what do you want? And she was like, I got this abortion piece, you know, with Luna, who we saw in the text message. And Stella's like, girl, we can't do that. And Bradley is really in her feelings, right? Because remember, Bradley's a fighter. She's likes to scruff up. And, you know, the fact is, she's like, girl, we can't do this. We're going to lose advertisers. You know what? The most important thing that you have on this network is your trustworthiness, is the veracity of the news that you're giving, right? So you can't squander that on these little piddly stories, no matter how important that they are. And her and Bradley are kind of going back, and she's like, I want to do something that matters. I thought that we're supposed to be here to make the difference. And she's like, yes, we're going to make a difference. If we have another contested election, everyone's going to be watching you and trusting you. So it's about what you say, and you only have so much capital to expend on these like kind of smaller things. Which really ties us into this next scene, which I thought was a fantastic full circle scene. So they're at the American Alliance of Journalists. If you recall, that was where Jennifer Aniston in season 1 announced that Bradley was going to be her host, right? This season, Bradley is receiving the First Amendment Award because of her work during the January 6th insurrection, right? So she shows up, so she's there. First she sees Laura on the red carpet, and Laura like gives her like the whole cold shoulder. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute here. When we last left this, weren't they okay? Weren't they together? Could drop it down in the comments and let me know, like, did I miss how they broke up? Because I just remembered she wanted to go to Montana. Laura's like, oh, you can stay here. And then Billy Crudup, Corey, announced his love for her. And then all of a sudden, now they're not together. Bradley is taking down randos at wherever she's meeting them at. And, you know, Laura is looking all salty. She's morning the hosting show with Mindy Kaling. at YDA, right? So I kind of don't know what happened. But anyway, Laura is just like, you know what? You just another chick who I took down. It's okay, whatever. She's like, Bradley's like, it doesn't have to be weird. And she's like, girl, it ain't weird. You ain't the first straight person I've turned out or whatever. So I was like, oh my God, lesbian drama. I don't know how much more than this. 5, 4, 3, 2. And then finally Bradley leaves. So then she starts to get drunk, okay? Because she's like in her feelings about her whole situation with Laura. And then all of a sudden, here comes Corey. And she's like, Corey's like, I know you interfered. I know you stopped me with this abortion piece or whatever. And Corey's like, girl, everything that happens in this network, I ain't behind. I don't do, and it's not always about you. Why don't you quit drinking? Don't try to manage me. So she snatches her champagnes, great product. Oh, the product placement in this episode was fantastic. Apple's getting all these money's worth with their little Apple product placement, and the Veuve Clicquot that was shown, also great product placement. Anyway, she goes to get drunk, and I was like, girl, and then I forgot how vicious Bradley's mouth was, right? Like, I remember from the previous season, because the show has been on for so long, I forgot her mouth is lethal. So when she says to Corey, well, if we were together, would you allow the story? I was like, girl, like, and he was just like, and again, Billy Crudup is such a great actor because he says so much without saying anything at all. And I think that that's one of the great things he brings to this role is that his movements and kind of like his embodiment of the character, it doesn't really do that. Sanford Meisner has a saying that says that an ounce of behavior is worth a pound of dialogue. And these actors really in this show really exhibit and really bring the script to life by their movements, by their eye movements, by the way in which they do things, far more than what their writing actually does. And that is just a telltale sign of exceptional acting and just well-trained acting there, and they're just fantastic. So after she guillotines him, like Jennifer Aniston is up giving an award, introducing Bradley for this award. She gives a very nice, she's my friend, we've worked together, bop, bop, boop. Really nice little, introduction. Girl, Bradley shows up with her little piece of paper like this. And I was like sitting there watching, it's like, girl, don't do it. Girl, don't do it. Girl, don't do it. And she just folds it up and was like, thank you for the award. And as a journalist, I can always say, there will always be someone to silence you. Everyone's like, okay, girl. And then that's her thing, and then she just walks off. And I'm like, Bradley, girl, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, but once again, because, I was like, girl, like, why? How are you going to fumble a whole ass bag like this, right? So here comes Jennifer Aniston again, giving you, rich white woman in black at nighttime at the piers in New York City. And they have a talk. And pretty much Jennifer Aniston's like, look, girl, you ain't where you used to be, right? You have to settle into who you are now instead of kind of keep wishing that you are or were who you used to be, right? Because you're Diane Sawyer, you're Dan Rather, you're on the evening news of a major network. The fact that you can't hop on a truck and go chase down these like anti-abortion people or whatever, you can't win every battle. You can't fight every fight, right? And Bradley's kind of like, okay, whatever. So Bradley gets on the phone, calls Luna's like, Luna girl, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do. I really admire you, whatever. But then now Alex is on her way to meet Paul Marks, and she's on the plane, and now she's reading about the abortion stuff, and she's like, what? Now, I didn't even know they had fake abortion clinics. I didn't know that they had abortion clinics that lie to women, who tell women like when they're only a couple of weeks pregnant, or a couple of weeks pregnant, that they're further along so that they women keep the babies and that they can't really do it. I had no idea. I will be Googling this later because I was like, what in the holy hell? I mean, Texas, come on. But anyway, they're flying. Chip is like, shouldn't you be getting some sleep since you are about to be in a rocket ship? He's like, yeah. She's like, yeah, whatever. So they land at Hyperion 1. We have Paul Marks, and everyone's there. Oh, by the way, Corey done told Alex that like he's coming along on the space shuttle on a little trip too, right? She's like, girl, whatever. So then they show up, and you can tell that like Paul Marks is very uncomfortable with all this media attention, right? Now, we don't know whether he's uncomfortable because he's up to shady things or whether this character, this Charter, is really like this kind of Elon Musk, anti-social, on the spectrum, something. I think it's somewhere in the middle, right? That he doesn't like a whole lot of attention and he's up to some shiesty stuff, right? Because part of the whole thing of having the space shuttle is to really put a good face on Hyperion 1 so they can keep their NASA contracts, is what we find out, right? And Paula's very much intrigued with Alex, right? Like, she's very much this like larger than life celebrity. His assistant's like, well, I don't know, she walks on water in Milwaukee. So he goes over to her and like they're checking each other out. She's like, oh my gosh, he's tall. And I'm like, Jennifer Aniston, I hate you because you were like that close to Paul Hamm. Again, I am not bedwinching for John Hamm at all, but you do have to say the man's attractive, right? Like, this will not be a bedwinching episode where I spend all my time bedwinching for John Hamm. Anyway, he's like, let me show her around the compound. She's like, sure. Child, he done put her out in the ATV, dust flying, helmet, she's screaming, the whole thing. Shows her like the 200 acres of the land. They do like a little like flirting. Oh, why'd you brought me out here? Oh, I read your book. Oh, la, la, la. And then she's like, okay, girl, why'd you bring me out here? Like, why am I going to space with you? Like, what's the real deal? He's like, so we can make this deal happen. She's like, what deal? What are you talking about? And then we get a hard cut, and then we hear the Jennifer Aniston storming in Corey's room. I was like, girl, what if he was busy? What if he was occupied? She don't care. She's letting him have it. She's like, I can't believe you. This is what's going to happen. You won't ever have my best interest. And he's looking at her like, girl, okay, you want to be brought in? You want to get read in? Let me tell you something. We ain't got no money. I don't over leverage to the streaming service. We are in a war. We're playing 3-card capitalism, and I'm happy to be at the table. Now, let me figure out these problems. Then you could come back with your piddly shit like this. And then Jennifer Aniston puts on her smart white woman hat on and go, you ain't told Sybil. You ain't told nobody. And he's like, and she's like, okay. She was like, fuck around and find out with me if you want to. Now, when she already had that quintessential Joan Crawford scene in the beginning, when she was like, I am the future, we're doing this my way type of shit. So she has established precedent that she will snitch. She will wet snitch. She will tsunami snitch all of Corey's plans. So I was like, ooh, girl, whatever. So and after that, Bradley gets a text message. We don't know what the text message is. Then we see Alex is complaining to Chip about the whole thing and powerful man and all this stuff. So she gets a text message from Bradley that says, can you spare a camera person in, Del Rio? So she was like, what? So child, Alex leaves with her camera person to go to, the Rio Grande. So she goes down with her camera person in Rio Grande, leaves everybody else excuse me, in a lurch, because, the shuttle is launching in like 4 hours or whatever. Child, Mia Rudd wakes up, because Alex texts her, I'm sorry. Mia wakes up, she's running around, waking up Stella, and they go to the Black Olympian. Hello, how about who this? Like, is she new? Is she just got a new hairstyle? Am I just getting old? I don't remember her from last season. Drop down in the comments, let me know. Is this a new person? Excuse me, because I don't remember this Olympian with the tight curls from previous seasons. And she's like, Stella's like, somebody got to go up in there. Somebody has to go into space. And Olympian chick is like, not me. Excuse me. So they're like, okay. So Bradley is coming off the plane in San Antonio, and then Corey is there. Corey's like, she's like, what you doing here? You owe me a favor. And we get this kind of really weird flashback, for a second. I'm like, did Bradley kill somebody? Did Bradley kill, it was a very weird flashback of someone wash your hands. Drop down in the comments if you know what that flashback was. Once again, it's been a while, but I don't remember this. I was like, what's this flashback for? I was like, girl, what you get yourself into? Because there has been at least, a couple of years since the show was on, literally and within the story. So he's like, you owe me one or whatever. Child, Bradley's about to go into space. So then she shows up. Paul introduces himself and is stone cold salty with Corey. He's like, you came to deliver me Alex and you got this knockoff, whatever. So then Bradley's in her feelings, and all of a sudden, let's see, where are we? So Bradley's in her feelings because Paul don't like her. They get ready to launch the space shuttle. And then I recall that Hyperion, it's called Hyperion 1. Hyperion is the god of the heaven, of the sun, and of the moon, which is why it's also called. Then then the shuttle launches, it's going up, and then they're saying that the shuttle is about to hit the Kármán line, which is the name of the episode, and that's the line between the Earth and the space, right? Which I think underscores this episode, because what we're really seeing is that Alex and Bradley are switching positions, right? Like Alex is moving to do probably more. I think we're gonna see Alex try to do more groundbreaking kind of people-y stuff, and Bradley move into that rich white woman, pragmatic, hard-nosed business thing, because they seem to be kind of moving that way, right? And that they have to understand the line and spaces of where they are, right? And that there are limits to everything. So then they're at the Kármán line, then they're floating. Bradley begins to, broadcast, then the broadcast goes dead, right? So that's our first episode. I have to say, great episode. I know I'm a lot rusty with my scripted shows because, when you've been doing comic books and reality TV, it just hits differently. So I promise the next one it'll be a little bit better. I feel like I was all over the place, but this is our first episode. Let me know what you think. Drop down in the comments. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to subscribe. And I will have all the episodes out before Wednesday. Thanks, guys. Bye.